A little more than a week after NHL free agency, all seems quiet. It's time to take stock of the NHL at large on today's edition of Locked On NHL.
You're Locked On NHL, your daily podcast on the National Hockey League. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to this Thursday edition of Locked On NHL. I am Nick Zararis, the host of Locked On Oilers. That is my good friend and one of the co-hosts of Locked On Penguins, Hunter Hodies. We want to thank everyone that is making Locked On NHL their first listen of the day. Locked On NHL, your team every day, and today's show is brought to you by our friends over at Monarch Money. And if you're ready to take control of your finances, you can use code LOCKEDONNHL at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. So Hunter has not been prefaced on the list of questions I have written down here on my iPad. So these aren't like on the spot, tricky, that are going to require a lot of thought. They're very open-ended and are intentionally set up in a way for a bit of a conversation. So the first question I have written down for you: who do you feel has improved the most over the first week and a half, 2 weeks of the offseason? What moves that a team made did you like the most and you feel good about the way they're set up to go into the fall?
See, I could say a bunch of teams here, but honestly, Nick, I might go with the Montreal Canadiens. They weren't like that active during free agency, but I really like the Noah Dobson trade for them. I really like the Bolduc trade for them as well. I really don't know why the Blues wanted to give up on him so soon, but the Canadiens are like, thank you very much. I look at this team up and down right now. I think they could use another impact forward in this lineup, but I think they are set up fairly well heading into this upcoming season. They now have another bona fide defenseman on the back end to pair with Lane Hutson. So I made the playoffs this year. They gave the Caps a little bit of a scare in round one. I think they're going to be better next season, especially now that they have a full season with Demidov. If I had to say a number two, Nick, I'd probably put Utah in there. I really like the JJ Peterka trade for them. That was their big move, I guess, if you want to say that. You know, they also went out there. They got, Perunovich. They got Nate Schmidt. They were able to sign also, I believe, Brandon Tanev. Yep, Brandon Tanev they brought in as well. So I like a lot of the moves that Utah has made as well.
So for me, and this is going to sound interesting in the context of the conversation we were having last week, I really like what Carolina did.
Yeah.
I know Ehlers isn't really a style fit for a dump and chase team. He's more of a carrier and a transition player, but he's undoubtedly a better winger. You think about having a full season of Taylor Hall, if he's healthy, playing in a really specialized role. They were able to extend him in season. And I love the K'Andre Miller trade as far as shooting for upside and looking to get better and trying to find a way. And I commend the Hurricanes for looking at the situation and saying, well, we're probably still not better than Florida, but we're going to try and find guys who can get us closer, as opposed to some of the other teams in the East who are effectively in a holding pattern and hoping Florida just magically stops being a good team. And then out West, and this might surprise you a little bit, I really like the moves the Oilers made, especially after getting Howard earlier this week. You add Howard, you have a full season in theory of Matthew Savoie. I really like Mangiapane, being able to get rid of the bad money they have. Whether or not they add another goalie, that's another question mark, but I really like what the Oilers run. And then the follow-up question: what team were you most disappointed with their offseason? Who didn't go for something that you thought might have?
You might be surprised by this pick, Nick, but the Chicago Blackhawks to me have been really disappointing this offseason. And I've seen the reasoning, Nick. We paid all these veterans last year. It didn't work out for us. We were still one of the worst teams in the league. Okay, I understand you have a lot of good prospects that you want to graduate to the NHL, but I don't feel like they have done enough to help out Connor Bedard going into his third season. They are still not even close right now to a playoff spot, let alone contending. And this is all they've done this offseason. I don't know, Nick. I'm disappointed by their front office. I think they should be helping Bedard a lot more.
Oh, I agree with you. I think there was a little bit of conjecture maybe towards the end of the season. Maybe they'd be in on Marner. How much would that actually help? But you feel like it's going to be another year of holding pattern and hoping some of those young guys take steps. And look, things can change very quickly in the NHL. All it takes is one or two of those young guys having a nice season. Spencer Knight, a full season of him in net, that might be able to bolster their long-term trajectory a little bit, but you would like them to take a step forward. For me, this one surprised you. I don't understand what the Rangers' plan is. they got a lower ceiling. They got a higher floor, but they got a lower ceiling. They are effectively not replacing Chris Kreider's 20 to 30 goals. They're banking on the combination of Brennan Othman and Gabriel Perreault to offset the loss of those 30 goals. Radish is, I guess, fine as a bottom six forward, but you're going in as a team that came into last season with the fourth best odds to win the Stanley Cup. You missed the playoffs. You traded out 4 of your 6 defensemen over the course of the season. You acquired a point per game forward, and your bottom 6 looks terrible on paper. And your big play was, we're going to get a stay-at-home defensive defenseman. And look, I think Gavrikov is their second best defenseman now, as behind Adam Fox, but they could have had a world where you could have had K'Andre Miller and Gavrikov on the same team, but instead they're paying for Borgen, Vakanainen, and Soucy. And you look at how these good teams like Edmonton, like Vegas, like Florida stay competitive. Those third pair guys, $1.5 million, $2 million. And it's not sexy. It's not an enticing way to build a team, but they're a lot more well-rounded and they have more guys with upside.
It's still kind of the same thing. Well, they're relying on Igor to go burr, just trying to get hot. I mean, they've been doing this for 20 years, Nick, going back to Henrik Lundqvist.
This is my whole life.
Yeah, literally. So it feels like they're still relying on that strategy. Hasn't worked for 20 years. I don't think it's going to work again this year, even though I think Shesterkin is one of the best goaltenders in the league. But I agree. The Rangers' strategy this offseason, it's weird. Like, I know they're trying to win this year, just because you don't hire Mike Sullivan if you're not trying to win. Yeah. But I look at their defense. I know Gavrikov is the best player Fox will have played with throughout his career, but after that, there's slim pickings there. And even the forward group, they're another year older. JT Miller, he was fine down the stretch last year, but is he going to play at that level again this year? Zibanejad again, another year older. Panarin is another year older, even though I still think he's a very good player in this league. So there's still a lot of questions there. If it'd be another team, Nick, I want to bring up Columbus. Not aggressive enough.
I wanted them to, too. They were in a good spot. They had the cap space. Their young guys all took steps last year. I loved what I saw from Fantilli and Marchenko. They had a real chance, and instead they just paid Provorov, which not very exciting.
They surprised everyone this past season. They almost made the playoffs after everything that happened. They had a tremendous season. You already said it. Fantilli was great. Voronkov was great. Werenski had, I think, the best season of his career. And then they go out, Nick. They trade for Miles Wood and Charlie Coyle. Okay, I don't mind Charlie Coyle, but taking on Miles Wood, and then you pay Ivan Provorov that crazy extension that I would not have done, but that's just me. I don't think they made enough sexy moves this offseason. I felt like this was really a big opportunity for them to make a quote-unquote sexy move. And yeah, I know, they tried to go get Noah Dobson. They reportedly offered Voronkov in the deal. Dobson wanted to go to Montreal. Nothing Columbus could do about that one. But I still felt like they maybe could have been aggressive in other areas as well. I felt like this was the time for them to really get aggressive after how close they were this past season, and they didn't. So I'm just a little bit disappointed in their offseason, even though I still like a lot of their young talent there.
Okay, this one's a quick question, and this will take us into our first break. Will McDavid sign for under 4.5 seasons on this contract he agrees to with Edmonton? Will he sign a 4-year deal like Austin Matthews did, or will he go for term, basically?
I'm going to go over. I'll take, I'll say 5 years. I'll actually go with that.
That's why I set the line at 4.5, because I feel like it's either a 4 or a 5 year deal. I could see a world where, if he really wants to do the Oilers a solid, he takes 8 years, but I think the Players Association would kill him if he did that, because that would really put him in a position to not capitalize. 4 or 5 years from now, if he agrees to a 4 or 5 year deal now, he's going to be clearing $20 million a year 4 or 5 years from now if he's up for a new contract 5 years from now. But we are going to take our first break on today's edition of Locked On NHL. When we come back, we're going to talk about college hockey and NIL and a whole lot more. So be sure to stick around to this edition of Locked On NHL, where we've got your teams covered every day. Do you ever wish managing your money felt easier? With Monarch Money, it can. Whether you're growing your savings or saving up for a big purchase, Monarch puts you in the driver's seat. It's like having your own personal CFO to give you full visibility and control over your finances. Monarch Money is so much more than a budgeting app. It is a complete financial command center. You can track all of your accounts, investments, and spending in one app. So in addition to managing your money, you are building real wealth. So I knew a bunch of the big box retailers were having sales this week, and in preparation for that, I used Monarch to set aside some money to get a new pair of noise-canceling headphones, which very happy to say will be here at some point later today. So if you're ready to take control of your finances, you need to visit monarchmoney.com today. If you're going to do that, you should use code LOCKEDONNHL and get 50% off your first year subscription. One more time, you can get 50% off your first year subscription with code LOCKEDONNHL. That's monarchmoney.com, code LOCKEDONNHL for half off your first year's subscription. Thank you to everyone who is hanging out with Hunter and I on this Thursday edition of Locked On NHL as we work through the early stages of the offseason. The summer starts to feel infinite by about mid-August, that we're never going to have hockey again. And we'll get there, don't worry. But for today, the next question I have for you, over under 1.5 of Luke Hughes and Lane Hudson on the Olympic team next year.
Ooh, over under 1.5 on Lane Hudson or Luke Hughes. See, I think I'm going to go with the under on this one. I think one of them gets it, but not both. I just, you look at the way Bill Guerin built the Four Nations team. Honestly, Nick, most of the Team USA roster for the Olympics picks itself. It's really just around the margins, around the edges where you have to get the decisions right. I know you're not going to go out there and outskill Canada. They have the best players, but like you still need to make the right decisions around the edges of your roster. They didn't do it for the Four Nations with Kreider, Trocheck, Nelson, etc. They left players like, Tage Thompson at home, Cole Caulfield, who I expect Thompson, by the way, to be on the Olympic team. It would be ridiculous if he didn't, especially after what you saw with the World Championships this year. But if I had to guess on one of those two that you mentioned, I think Luke Hughes has a better shot right now than Lane Hudson to make it.
The crazy thing is, like 5 years from now in 2030, they'll both probably be on the team, which will be pretty sick to see. Speaking of two guys who played college hockey, big news in the world of college hockey, Gavin McKenna signing with Penn State for a reported $750,000 a year, which is $50,000 less than what Mackie Sansevich signed for with the Florida Panthers about an hour and a half ago, which is crazy to say.
Penn State's got that NIL, man. I mean, you know how much they pay their football team, Nick? You and I are both college football guys. You know how much NIL money they have for their football team? They have plenty to give to Gavin McKenna.
Okay, so I have two questions for you off of this. What happens first? Penn State wins a hockey national title or the Sabres make the playoffs? Because, as you might know, the Pagulas, who own the Buffalo Sabres, are big proponents of Penn State's athletic programs. The hockey rink at Penn State is named after them. What happens first? A Penn State hockey national title or the Sabres get back to the postseason?
Oh, it's Penn State winning a national title, especially this year where I think the Nittany Lions are one of the biggest favorites to win now that they have McKenna. Jackson Smith is also committed to them this year. He was in the 2025 NHL draft. And, this is going to be so huge for the program because, he's going to hear his name called, Nick, and other recruits. Gavin McKenna, first overall pick, I should say, from Penn State. Other players are going to hear that and be like, cool, now I got to go to Penn State. So they're going to be turning, I think, into a juggernaut here. And Penn State is going to be a big favorite to get to the Frozen Four. And I would say I would see them winning a national title before the Sabres get to the playoffs, at least right now, man.
It's funny because this year when Penn State made the Frozen Four, one of my friends who's a Penn State alumni texted me and said, what do you think's harder, to make the NHL playoffs or to make the Frozen Four? And I said, the hockey playoffs, unequivocally. The Pagulas can't do that to save their lives, and they've had the team for more than a decade now. And then off of that question, do you think we will see a real streamlined, I won't say attempt, but do you think we will see a real movement of these guys choosing NCAA hockey as opposed to major junior hockey because the money's going to be there? Do you think even though I know a lot of these guys don't want to go to school, they don't want to go to class, getting that money up front and getting to microdose the college experience for a year or two, do you think we're going to see that change over the course of the next 5 to 10 years?
I do, and I think it's also very much needed. Like, even outside of the money, like, obviously I know that's important. NIL has completely changed college athletics. You can look to see what some of these players are getting for college football, college basketball, now even for hockey. Nick, you put the report out there that how much NIL money McKenna is getting from Penn State. And yes, they have all the NIL money in the world. They are one of the biggest Big Ten programs in the country, one of the biggest total schools in the country. But even outside of that, the opportunity to play against better players in the NCAA to showcase their skills is also super important. Like for someone like Gavin McKenna, he has nothing left to learn in junior hockey. We saw what he did this past season. We saw that crazy point streak that he went on. There's a reason why he is going to be the number one pick in the 2026 NHL draft. There's a reason why people are talking about him as the next generational type player in the NHL. But I also want to see what he can do against college players, because this will be a better league for him compared to junior, in my opinion. And I think other players, like you saw Jackson Smith, you're seeing a lot of these other players around the league as well, committing to college hockey programs so that they can keep improving, keep developing. I think college hockey, it is a better place to develop your game than most junior leagues, because you kind of, once you dominate there, you don't really have much else to learn. So you go to college hockey, you can develop more, go up against better pros, and that's how I see it, at least, especially for a league like the QMJHL, which is one of the weaker leagues for junior hockey. I think a lot of the top players there should 100% go to the NCAA, and also some of these other leagues as well. So, yes.
Okay. Off of that question, on a scale of 1 to 10, how shocked are you that we got a labor agreement done as early as we did, and that everybody seems relatively happy with the state of the CBA? On a scale of 1 to 10, how shocked are you?
Give me like a 9.5 on that, considering how throughout our lifetimes, it's been ugly. Like, we're not really used to seeing the PA in the league get along like this. And Nick, this has been the last, 2 CBAs now where it feels like there's been some nice peace here. Like, no one's really mad at one another. The agents seem to be cool. The players seem to be cool. All the league executives seem to be cool. Hopefully it can stay like this for a while, because it has not been like this throughout our lifetime. So I'll go a 9.5.
I would say somewhere between a 7 and an 8. There was a little part of me that was worried. The one interesting thing I did see, it was attributed to an anonymous player in The Athletic yesterday. But one thing I did find interesting, the player said, was, how come we can't get any expansion money? How come the expansion money only goes to the owners? And I think that's a reasonable critique. I think if we're going to be asking, for $1 billion for an expansion franchise, that should get divided between the Players Association and the ownership. That should be an equal part of hockey-related revenue like everything else. But other than that, I know the players are very happy they got the Olympics agreed to ahead of time for 2030 and next year. I know that was a real sore sticking point. And I think it will be very interesting to see what the next batch of TV deals do for the money for everybody, because that's kind of your rocket fuel if you're a league to trying to get growth. That's how the NBA got almost doubled the salary cap in a 4-year window. Is they got a new TV deal in the mid 2010s, and every team got effectively a max player out of that extra money. So the NHL coming out of a long stagnant period where the salary cap, if you'll recall, when we came out of that 2012-13 lockout, it was like $45 million for the whole team, 18 skaters, 2 goalies. And now we're looking at a world where it's taken a decade, but we're going to be over $100 million within a year or two. Crazy to see. It's nice to see this labor piece. We're going to take our second and final break. We come back, got a couple more of these types of open-ended questions. Hope you guys stick around on this edition of Locked On NHL, where we've got your teams covered every day. Thank you to everyone who is hanging out with Hunter and I on this Thursday edition of Locked On NHL. I know I already asked you a question about the Buffalo Sabres, but they are a part of this next question as well. So, of the Blackhawks, the Sabres, the Ducks, the Sharks, and the Kraken, who makes the playoffs next?
Wow.
Those are all teams who have missed the playoffs consistently. I know Seattle was in there 2 years ago. They had the big upset against Colorado in the first round, but by and large, I would put them in this tier of team. Which of those teams makes the playoffs next?
I think I'm going to say the Ducks, just because I really like the young talent. I like Lucas Dostal. Joel Quenneville, I think, will at least get more out of them this year and going forward. I know he's been out of coaching for a long time for very obvious reasons, by the way. But, I think, again, I really, really like their young core. And I still don't think they're closing in on being a serious contender, but I think for this season, they can get close to making playoffs. I don't know if it'll be this year, Nick, but I think it could be the year after where they potentially get back to the playoffs. I think of those teams, they're the closest, in my opinion.
Okay, similar question. Who makes the playoffs next, the Flyers or the Penguins?
See, like, I don't want to be a true homer because, like, the Flyers are – but I also don't think they're that good right now.
The Flyers don't have a goalie. The Flyers don't have a goalie.
The Flyers, as of right now, I think the Flyers might be – well, I don't know if I want to say that because the Penguins roster right now, it's actually a little bit closer to mid than being like a bottom 3 team. So, you know what? I'll be a little bit of a homer. I'll say the Penguins. I think even though they're still very much rebuilding right now, I think they can make the playoffs before the Flyers will. Hopefully that one doesn't age like milk, brother.
So is Mario going to go get some of those magic beans to rub together and win another lottery and drop Gavin McKenna onto a team with Twilight Sidney Crosby? 20
years difference, baby. Mario to Sid to McKenna. Hey, could happen. I will say this. If they somehow win the lottery, I don't expect them to, by the way, because I don't think they're going to be the worst team in the league or one of the 3 worst teams in the league. But they somehow get some lottery luck, I'm drinking everyone's tears if they get McKenna. I'll say that.
It'd be funny for that. As far as me, I think the Flyers are probably closer to a playoff team right now. But I think the Penguins, if they just take their medicine for a year, are going to have a really good chance to get back in the mix next year. I think the fact the East is as stinky as it is.
They also have right now upwards of $50 million in cap space going into next offseason. It's not going to be that amount because they'll do other things, but they're going to have more than double the amount of cap space, that they had this year. They will be spending that. It's not just going to be on cap dumps or anything like that. Like they will be aggressive, I think, in trying to really start improving next year. I agree. I think this year the Flyers are closer to making the playoffs, though I don't think the Flyers are going to make the playoffs this year either, neither for the Penguins. But I think as a whole, the Penguins, I think, will make the playoffs again sooner than the Flyers. We'll see.
Okay, speaking of the Pittsburgh Penguins, will Sidney Crosby sign another contract to continue playing in the NHL when his current one expires?
Yes, he will sign another deal with the Penguins. I think it'll be a 1-year deal, and I think he'll keep rotating, doing those 1-year deals for as long as he wants to. People do not believe into the nonsense that is the Sidney Crosby trade rumors. All these people want to engagement farm on Twitter and all these other places. Do not believe them. He does not want to leave Pittsburgh. He has never wanted to leave Pittsburgh, and he will not leave Pittsburgh unless something drastically, and I mean drastically, changes.
Okay. I agree with you. I think Sid will keep playing. I think there is a world where I could talk myself into this being it. You know, he wins the one more gold medal, and then the following year is his retirement tour. Every city gives him a nice little gift. We keep doing that. But I think Sid wants to keep going. He's still an elite hockey player. He's still a point-per-game player. I think there's a part of him that looks at the challenge of trying to lead a team through this transition period. And the sicko he is, he's like, okay, I can do this. I'm going to get this team where it needs to go because he's just that competitive. And I don't think there are a lot of people like that. I think that's what people don't seem to understand about why he would stay during this transition period, because we've seen this so much now. I mean, LeBron opened the floodgates last decade with the star players just trying to win as much as they could because the noise around ring culture got so insufferable. You saw Durant do this. You've seen basically every big star in the NBA do this on one level or another in pursuit of trying to win a ring. But now I think Sid is a bit of a throwback in that respect, of that he values the loyalty the Penguins have shown him, and he's rewarded that loyalty by showing it back to them. So on the subject of free agents and subsequent moves, what player that hasn't signed yet, or what restricted free agent that hasn't signed yet that could be traded, are you most interested to see where they end up? Because there are some nice names out there that I think could play nice roles.
So for me, Jack Roslovic, Nick, he hasn't signed yet, 20 goal scorer last year. I think he could fit a whole bunch of different teams. It's reported that the Maple Leafs have interest in him, but I think they're trying to juggle a few things here at the moment. But I think of the free agents, he's probably the best one left, in my opinion. Yeah. And then as for restricted free agents, I am keeping an eye on Mason McTavish with the Ducks. I mean, I think he's most likely going to sign there. I put probably like 95% that he does. But hey, until he does, maybe some teams are calling the Ducks saying like, hey, what could we give you for a player like this? Because he can be a difference maker on a contender, in my opinion. Again, I think the chances of him leaving the Ducks are like 5%, but it's still something I'm at least keeping a small eye on for this offseason.
No, McTavish is definitely an interesting piece. He has shown flashes of being a pretty good second-line center, and I think in the right situation, he could give the right team a lot. I will give an honorable mention to Jeff Skinner, who's sitting out there. I think Jeff Skinner can play a very useful role on a variety of teams. I know it didn't really work for him in Edmonton. I think that was very much a byproduct of the environment where Chris Knobloch didn't want to play him on the third line with Henrique and Connor Brown because he was using that as a bit more of a defense-first unit, didn't really trust Skinner's defensive instincts, his forechecking ability. Okay. Now, I'm going to ask you one last question, and then we're going to get out of here, and I will give you my answer as well. Sitting here right now on July 10th, who do you think will be in the conference finals for both leagues?
Okay, so the Final Four.
Yes.
Right now, I'm going to go Florida. That's just obvious. I think they are the best team in the conference going into next season. And as for the other team, see, that's actually really tough because a lot of the East is stinky. You know what? I might just go, kind of here. Give me Carolina, I guess, just because I think the way they have improved this offseason, I think they are one of the top teams in the East going into next season. I love the Ehlers signing, even though, as you said, the stylistic fit might be a bit weird, but I think this also shows Rod Brindamore potentially opening up his system a little bit to change a couple of things to fit other really good players into it. So I will go Florida, Carolina. As for the West, right now, Nick, give me Vegas and give me Dallas. I will say those two. I wanted to go Edmonton, but I'm just not sure right now. I think Vegas, after the Marner signing, that team, I think right now is the best team in the conference, and I will go with the Dallas Stars.
Okay. So, number one, Florida, obviously. I think the Panthers are far and away the best team in the East. I don't think anyone is even remotely close. If you want to make an argument for the Lightning out of the Atlantic, I'm going to need to see a lot more from them than we did last time these two teams went off. Like, Florida kind of ran them out of the building. I know that first game of the series was the closest game, and so much changes based on that. But yeah, Florida for sure. And then in the back of my mind, I was trying to game out the path to the conference final on the other side of the bracket through the Metro. And I said, Carolina, yes, the Devils will make the playoffs. I think the Rangers will probably make the playoffs as one of the wild cards. And then whoever that last team is, whether it's Montreal, if it's Columbus, if it's Ottawa, whomstever, as one of the wild cards. And I'm going to go a little off the board. I'm going to say it's the Devils. I'm going to say you get a Rangers-Carolina first-round series. The Rangers would beat Carolina. The Devils would beat the Rangers in the second round. And then you would get the Devils in the Eastern Conference Final, where Florida would smoke them. But I do think the Devils are capable of making the conference finals this year, should everything shake out okay for them. And then out west, I think Vegas is, I'll be honest, I thought Vegas was the best team in the regular season last year in the Western Conference. Yeah. And I was just kind of waiting for them to put it together to get to that next gear. And then out of the Central, there's a part of me that has a lingering feeling that Chris McFarland's going to do something again to try and shake things up there, because Colorado's been hanging around in this conversation for a few seasons now. Basically, since they've won the Cup, we've been waiting for them to get back to a conference finals, a Stanley Cup final. And I'll be a little different, and I'll say we get Colorado. So we get Colorado into that second round, but because of the way the bracket is set up, we will see Colorado and Dallas in the second round again. So what that means is only one of those teams is going to play Vegas, and I think it'll be Colorado this time around. I think we get Colorado-Vegas in the Western Conference final this time.
I do like that one a lot. I love Colorado a lot going into this season, and we'll have to see if they have some cap space. I think it has to be a lot of dollar in, dollar out, though, with where they are at. But I do have a small inkling that they may want to make one more big move to really help out Nate and company. They're going to have a full season of Landeskog this upcoming season. That's great. Kale McCarr will obviously be back. They still have Devon Taves. So I do like that one a lot. I was going back and forth between Colorado, Dallas. I landed on Dallas right now just because of, where they are. But if they somehow move Robertson, which I would not do, then my pick looks even worse. So we'll see. I do like those final four as well.
It'd be a lot of fun. All right, that'll do it for this week's edition of Locked On NHL. Thank you to everyone who made Locked On NHL their first listen of the day. Please subscribe wherever you get your podcasts or over on YouTube. Hunter and I will talk to you guys next Thursday.